All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about 7 ways to boost testosterone naturally. Now, as always, this is just information and not medical advice. So my take on this is that low testosterone is sludgy blood that is leading to organ damage. Quote, reported incidence of varicocele in the general population ranges from 15 to 20% and up to 30 to 40% of infertile men. So that sludgy blood has a hard time getting to the testicle and getting away from the testicle. And this leads to a higher testicular temperature, mitochondrial dysfunction, and an inflammatory burden. So then the testicle begins to shrink, it atrophies, and that leads to a low testosterone. This is just my take. And there is a grading system for a varicocele. So even a grade 0, someone could have starting signs and not even be aware of it. It can only be seen on the ultrasound. A grade 1 is when you can feel it, when you do the Valsalva maneuver, when you go and just do that kind of brace down feeling, you can feel the vein enlarge. Grade 2 is when you can feel it without doing that Valsalva maneuver. And a grade 3 is when you can just see it plainly. It's just causing a visible deformity in the scrotum. So my take is that the sludgy blood is having a hard time getting down to the testicle and away from the testicle. That leads to testicular shrinkage, and that leads to a low testosterone problem. There's a paper here, varicocele might cause deterioration in Leydig cell function. A varicocele is a significant risk factor for hypogonadism. That's low testosterone. And this is something worth figuring out because a varicocele is potentially linked to heart disease. We suggest that endothelial dysfunction may have a role in the varicocele. Therefore, we recommend that every patient with symptomatic varicocele should be evaluated and followed up regularly for cardiovascular pathologies. So the varicocele is linked to the progression of heart disease. And so anything that we can do to reduce the varicocele naturally, it should be anti-heart disease as far as I can see. Now, here's a link between an H. pylori infection in the gut, and that's linked to lower androgen activity. It's linked to lower masculine hormones like testosterone. We've got a paper here on the meta-analysis of the H. pylori infection and the risk of coronary heart disease. So is bacterial overload the cause of heart disease and things like sludgy blood? They're finding out now that this H. pylori gut bacteria is being found in the liver with people who have liver cancer. So they're finding out that how is this gut bacteria getting into the liver? It's causing inflammation. And they're finding out that H. pylori might be linked to GERD. So that feeling of acid reflux and the throat clearing, that feeling all the time, that could be linked to H. pylori, asthma, and inflammatory bowel disease. And this bacteria has a whole list of symptoms, including the aggregation of blood platelets. So it's causing that blood to slow down. It's causing the blood platelets to kind of clot around and get thick and sludgy. And a vitamin D deficiency was associated with increased odds of having an H. pylori infection by almost 3 times. So my take is that there's an immune system problem. This is causing a vitamin D deficiency. There's an infection in the gut that's causing all sorts of gut problems. That's leading to thick, sludgy blood. That thick, sludgy blood leads to organ damage, including a shrinkage of the testicles that may or may not be linked to a varicocele. But all of that is linked to having low testosterone levels. And so if we can improve the immune system, then we should be able to bring up our testosterone levels naturally. That's my take. And so we're going to be going through some tactics to do that. Number 1, we want to spend time outside in the sunshine and just time outside in general. No one goes outside anymore. In this paper here, 92% of the day is spent indoors. That means we're behind windows that block all the ultraviolet radiation. We're inside in the stale air. We're not getting outside anymore. And everyone's not feeling well. And is it any surprise? A recent study in New Zealand found that school children typically receive less than 5% of the available ultraviolet dose, even in the summer. So even kids aren't getting outside anymore. And even when they do, they're often putting on stuff like sunscreen to block those ultraviolet rays. So people aren't getting outside anymore, and it's causing a huge problem. because testosterone is linked to vitamin D and it raises seasonally. So our testosterone levels are quite a lot higher in the summer and they're lower in the winter. And in this study here, it's directly linked to vitamin D levels. So when vitamin D levels peak at the end of August, that is when our testosterone levels peak. So the more sunshine we get, the better our testosterone levels will be. In this paper here, vitamin D is associated with testosterone and hypogonadism in Chinese men. So a lower vitamin D level was associated with a higher prevalence of hypogonadism in Chinese men. So what that means is that the lower your vitamin D level was, the lower your testosterone levels were. A causal link between vitamin D and total testosterone in men. Lower vitamin D levels were associated with lower total testosterone. Vitamin D is needed for our body to process high cholesterol properly. So in this study, they found that diabetics deficient in vitamin D can't process cholesterol normally, so it builds up in the blood vessels. That's causing those arteries to shrink. It's causing the blood to be put under high blood pressure. It's causing all these issues in the cardiovascular system. Is all linked to vitamin D. And then your testicles aren't getting the nutrients brought in with the blood. It's not getting the waste from metabolism being brought away. So we need to get our cardiovascular system back online and functioning well. Vitamin D diminishes the high platelet aggregation of type 2 diabetes patients. So glycemic control is inversely associated with high platelet aggregation and low vitamin D levels. So we need to get our vitamin D levels boosted. That's going to improve our blood sugar control. It's going to allow our bloods to flow properly. Now, people may say vitamin D, I can just take a supplement for that and be done with it. But there's something wrong with the supplement. It does not seem to mirror all of the benefits of sunshine for whatever reason. Even the supplement itself can come with side effects. Quote, prolonged consumption of vitamin D supplementation may induce hypercalcemia. So it's changing the way our body is using these minerals just by overdosing on one type of hormone. Here's a 2022 paper. Excess intake of vitamin D causes hypercalcemic toxicity. However, experiments with different animal species have shown that long-term supply of oral vitamin D in apparently non-toxic amounts causes atherosclerosis in large arteries. So the pharmaceutical version of the sunshine is causing atherosclerosis. That's not good. We want to improve our heart disease. We want to improve our heart muscles and improve our generation of blood flow. So there's something weird going on with the supplement. Here's a paper. Multiple trial data show that oral vitamin D supplementation has no effects on these endpoints, talking about risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic syndrome. So sunshine is good for improving our heart health, but multiple studies have shown that the vitamin D supplement doesn't seem to be working the same as sunshine. And researchers are still trying to figure out the optimal form of it. They're still playing around with different formulations of it and if they should be bypassing the liver or not. So there's new supplements like Develop, which are in a different form that's trying to bypass the liver. And a lot of people report less side effects at least if you look at the Amazon.com reviews. But I haven't tried it and I have no interest in trying it because I don't think that even if they improve the form of this supplement, I don't think it can replicate the totality of the sun. The sun is so much more than just vitamin D. The sunshine is proven to improve the immune system, and the sunlight offers a surprising benefit. It energizes our infection-fighting T cells. So the sunshine exposure is boosting our immune cells in a different way than vitamin D. Quote, the skin has a large share of thymic cells in humans, twice the number circulating in the blood. We found that sunlight makes hydrogen peroxide in thymic cells, which make the cells move. So this is beyond vitamin D. There are all these other benefits to sunshine, and you can't just condense it all into just this one hormone. The sun is much more beyond that. In this paper here, sunshine exposure reduces fat gain and reduces signs of heart disease. So they took mice and they were giving them ultraviolet radiation, and that was preventing the early signs of cardiovascular disease. So we want to get as much time outdoors in the sunshine as possible without burning, of course. And speaking of burning, a lot of people think they go out into the sun, they go into direct sun, they hang out for 20 minutes, they get red, they're about to burn, and then they go back inside and they think that they got a lot of sun. So we don't want to go out in the sunshine and just burn. We want to hang out in the shade where we're getting that lower dose of ultraviolet where it doesn't burn our skin, and we can just hang out there longer and we're receiving more of the UV over time without getting the overdose of it all at once and causing the burning. It's sort of like water. You're not going to drink 4 gallons of water all at once. You take a little glass and you have a little bit throughout the day, and your body paces you. You want to pace yourself with the sun, and we want to spend as much time as we can outside, hanging out in the shade, just a low dose instead of the heavy dose that causes the skin to burn. And in this paper here, it says shade is an important UV minimization strategy. However, it may also play an important role in providing the human body with adequate levels of ultraviolet B radiation for pre-vitamin D production. So the ultraviolet B rays, which are the ones that charge our immune system, they bounce very easily. And so when you're hanging out in the shade, you can get those ultraviolet B rays that are going to help your body to work better. And they come into your eyes, and your eyes will send it out into the body. And so we don't want to be wearing sunglasses or eyeglasses. We just want to hang out in the shade and get those ultraviolet rays. Step 2, we want to stop eating foods that you can't currently digest. So the gut microbiome and good cardiovascular health, it's linked. These data support animal findings, demonstrating a relationship between relative human gut microbiota composition and cardiorespiratory fitness in healthy young adults. So what that means is people with good gut health have a better functioning cardiovascular system, and that's going to help with blood flow down to the testicle and improving the testosterone synthesis. So we want to help support our gut to work better. Here in a 2018 paper, the researchers find that the gut microbiome is critical for maintaining a normal estrous cycle, testosterone levels, and reproductive function. They're finding that there's a link between good gut health and being able to generate testosterone. Diminished androgen levels are linked to irritable bowel syndrome and cause of bowel dysfunction in mice. So they're finding out in adults with IBS that free testosterone levels are lower than those people who are healthier. And it's inversely correlated with symptom severity. So the people who had worse IBS symptoms had even lower levels of testosterone. So the worse their gut health was, the worse their hormone levels were. A vitamin D deficiency changes the intestinal microbiome that reduces the B vitamin production in the gut. So when you have a healthy gut, you have all these good bacteria and they're producing all these B vitamins that our body uses to perform the tasks that it needs to do. So when you have a disrupted gut, you're not able to produce enough B vitamins that your body is going to use. So a vitamin D deficiency can cause gut problems, and that could be how it's linked to low testosterone. Now, in this 2020 study, they found that a low nickel diet was helping to fight against GERD symptoms such as acid reflux and that throat clearing, anything like that. And so a low nickel diet, the highest foods are grains, nuts and seeds, chocolate, margarine, because margarine is used, it's hydrogenated with a nickel catalyst, and also water that's been sitting around in bare stainless steel, which has nickel in it. So things like water kettles that boil water, stainless steel water bottles, those kinds of things, that can absorb the nickel, and then you're going to drink that nickel, and it can be feeding that bad gut bacteria like H. pylori, which needs nickel to survive. Reducing nickel-based foods, if you already have a disrupted gut microbiome, might be something worth trying. So could a low nickel diet help the body starve out the bad bacteria? Quote, the addition of a nickel-free diet to standard triple therapy significantly increases the H. pylori eradication rate. So when they gave the antibiotics to people to help clear out this bad gut bacteria, it worked even better when they removed all sources of nickel as well. In a 2022 study, the ketogenic diet, in the majority of studies, increases in circulating vitamin D were reported. So is this how the ketogenic diet works? You avoid all of these triggering foods, and that allows your vitamin D levels to rise, and that's going to help to clear away the inflammation. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to eat a ketogenic diet, because I believe the problem stems from a impaired immune system. So we can no longer control the gut bacteria. And so some of these foods are just setting off an infection down there. It's feeding the bad gut bacteria. It might be helpful temporarily to reduce some foods that are triggering your gut, but ultimately we want to improve the body so that we can regain food freedom and be able to eat food freely. There's a reason we crave carbs. Carbs give us energy quickly. It can help boost testosterone levels if we have a good immune system in play. In this study here, coffee and tobacco raises testosterone. How does it do this? Total testosterone was positively associated with coffee consumption and smoking. Does smoking kill bad gut bacteria? Smoking was negatively associated with an H. pylori infection. The risk of H. pylori seropositivity decreased linearly with cigarette consumption per day. So that means every single cigarette that someone consumed, it lowered the rates of the H. pylori infection. Now, I'm not suggesting that someone starts smoking cigarettes, but I do find it interesting that our vices are antibacterial. It's trying to kill that bad gut bacteria, and that's going to allow the body to work better and raise those testosterone levels naturally. Here's a list from Johns Hopkins of foods that might trigger reflux issues: fried food, fast food, pizza, potato chips, chili powder, fatty meats such as sausage and bacon, pasteurized cheese. Other foods that cause problems that you may want to pay attention to is tomato-based sauces, citrus fruits, chocolate, which is high nickel, peppermint, and carbonated beverages. Now, I've coached a lot of people over the years, and it seems like the two biggest triggers are pasteurized dairy and iron fortified white flour. So if you can remove those two things, that's going to help a lot with digestion. All right, number 3, we want to eat enough vitamin A and vitamin D. So a vitamin A deficiency and low testosterone. Quote, because of previous results indicating the apparent piling up of cholesterol in vitamin A deficiency, a possible explanation is vitamin A deficiency prevents chemical transformation of cholesterol into testosterone. The evidence obtained suggests that vitamin A deficiency interferes with the synthesis or release of androgens. In this paper here, a vitamin A deficiency in rats causes testicular shrinkage. Animals maintained on retinol deficient diets exhibit testicular atrophy and loss of the germinal epithelium. Now again, the supplements seem to come with issues, so it's best to get vitamin A from food sources that would come with the whole complex of vitamin A forms, and also to work on vitamin D, which works hand in hand with vitamin A. In fact, it seems like ultraviolet and vitamin A seem to have some sort of relationship there. Here's a different paper. At least in mammals, retinoic acid is a pivotal factor in maintaining the functionality of the testes. Quote, removal of dietary vitamin A led to testicular generation. Here's a 2012 paper. Obese individuals have been found to have lower vitamin A levels and lower vitamin A intake compared with normal weight individuals. So it could be that a vitamin A deficiency is causing a poor immune response, and that's leading to the sludgy blood, that's leading to the stubborn fat storage, it's leading to all sorts of problems. The vitamin A supplements don't seem to work well in studies, and it could be because you're overdosing on just one form of it. There's all sorts of different forms. When you get it through food, naturally, you're going to get a whole complex of them, along with everything else that you might need to mobilize vitamin A. It could be that you need all these other vitamins that are going to come with that food naturally to use the vitamin A properly. We just don't know. For example, we might need a lot of vitamin D to handle vitamin A properly. In this paper, for instance, solar radiation has opposite effects on vitamin A and D, catabolizing vitamin A, but increasing the concentration of vitamin D. Now, we know that vitamin D is important. We know that vitamin A is important. We need to bring up both levels at the exact same time. So we're going to need lots of sunshine exposure, lots of time outside in the shade while working on our diet to improve vitamin A levels. Vitamin A exerts a photoprotective action in skin by absorbing the ultraviolet B radiation. Now, this is just my take. But I believe that the vitamin A is used as a photoreceptor in the body, and it might be somehow transforming that light into something that we can use in our body. And that's why the level is lower. It's not because the light is lowering the level, but it's just that our body is able to use that now. So if we want to absorb that light better, we should work on vitamin A and then also work on getting outside as much as possible. So we want to avoid the supplements and try and get it from natural sources. And the best sources of that for vitamin A is grass-fed meat and grass-fed tallow. So when the animal is raised outdoor in the pasture and it can get access to those carotenoids in the fresh green grass, that's going to allow them to form active vitamin A that our bodies can use. The organ meats of an animal are also highest in vitamin A. The highest source is the eye, which is low in iron and copper and other metals, so it doesn't have that strong taste like liver. Not everybody wants to eat fish head soup or fish eye or those kinds of things. So a more delicious option would be sweetbreads. That's usually made out of the thymus or the pancreas, which can help digestion. And those taste really good and are also likely great sources of vitamin A. For vitamin D, we want to hang outside in the shaded sunshine. If you live up in the north, you may want to investigate light therapy. I'm a big fan of that. And you can also look at natural food sources that are high in vitamin D, such as wild fish and eating meat from pastured animals. So meat that is raised outdoors has a lot higher levels of vitamin D. So an idea for vitamin A and D, grass-fed pasture-raised steak with an apple cider vinegar carrot salad. So you're going to get the meat with the iron that will come with the vitamin A, D, E, K2, and B12 to handle that iron properly. And you want to eat it as rare as you can enjoy it because it's going to keep those compounds like creatine still intact. And a ribeye is a great option because you're going to be getting that fat that has the vitamin A and D, the fat-soluble compounds. You're going to be getting that fat in an enjoyable format. And shredded carrots would have the carotenoids and help with digestion by being a bit antibacterial. Another great option would be wild salmon with roasted asparagus. So the wild salmon in one study has been found to have 4 times the vitamin D levels compared to farm salmon. So even if you aren't the biggest fan of fish and you just wanted to eat fish for a health reason, eating wild salmon would allow you to eat it 4 times less often, or maybe you eat it half as often and you're getting way more benefits. So you want to take that, get it with the skin, you want to score it, pack it full of sea salt, pan fry that in lard or tallow. You get that nice crispy skin, and that's going to give you a source of collagen. Another option is fish roe, which has high levels of vitamin D, and based on its color, I couldn't find it in a study, but based on its color, it looks like it would be very, very high in vitamin A as well. Now, I don't take any supplements. I'm not a fan of them. And fish roe is expensive, but if I treat it like a supplement and I think about it as a supplement price, it's not so bad. You just have a little spoon of it in the morning. Or when you're out and about, you can go to a sushi restaurant and getting some fish roe sushi would be one of the best options that you can get there. Sweetbreads are the best organ meat, in my opinion. They taste amazing. You can add it to your meals as an anti-inflammatory side, and that's going to help boost your testosterone. So you can parboil it, you pull it apart and remove all the membranes, and then you put it in a bag with spices. And we use white flour that's not fortified with iron. And then we would pan fry that in tallow, and it tastes amazing. Number 4, we want to eat lots of healthy animals. In this study here, our study found that cooking with lard and other animal fat oil is more beneficial to cardiovascular health in older Chinese. So animal fat such as tallow or lard is better than using vegetable oil. It's better for your heart. Why is that better for your heart? It's going to help your heart muscles to work better. It's going to allow your body to produce enough blood. That's going to help with blood flow for your entire body, including your testosterone producing testicles. There are all these amazing compounds found in meat that can help the entire body, including the cardiovascular system and the immune system. And this review is higher consumption of animal flesh foods associated with better iron status among adults. So of the 7 high-quality studies, 5 showed a positive association between animal flesh intake and iron status. So we want a good immune system. And that's going to allow our iron status to be higher. That's going to allow us to produce enough healthy blood, and that's going to help our blood flow throughout the entire body. And dietary saturated fats and or cholesterol and circulating androgen concentration. So the more saturated fat that you eat, the higher your testosterone will be. So dietary saturated fats will improve your testosterone levels. This demonization of saturated fats may be because of people realizing that pasteurized dairy has been causing issues in people's digestion by potentially feeding pathogenic bacteria. So when you have a compromised immune system, not everyone does well with pasteurized dairy. And then all of a sudden, everyone demonizing saturated fats, even from eating healthy animals like a lamb or a goat or cattle. In this 2016 paper, meat eaters had the highest intake of saturated fatty acids, which we know is linked to good testosterone, protein, vitamin B2, vitamin B12, vitamin D, which is good for testosterone, zinc, and iodine. All of those things are great for making sure that the whole immune system is working well. In a 2015 paper here, they're looking at the vitamin D status of beef cattle reared in the United States. It seems like a lot of the cattle are already vitamin D insufficient, and some of them may be even straight up deficient. So what this means is we're eating animals that are already sick. They already have low levels of vitamin D. And so when you eat them, you're not going to get vitamin D from them. And so we want to choose animals that are healthy already. So when we eat their healthy meat, we get those healthy compounds in our body. So we want to try and get grass-fed, pasture-raised animals that are raised out in the sunshine that have good levels of vitamin D. So we want to eat healthy animals to become healthy ourselves. Several phytochemicals found in grass-fed meat and milk are in quantities comparable to those found in plant foods, known to have anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, and cardioprotective effects. So they're finding out that when the animals have access to pasture, they're eating these plants, they're putting these phenols, these carotenoids, these different compounds into their meat and fat. And then when we eat them, we get exposure to those as well. All these people are worried about vegetables when you could just eat a healthy animal that's already eaten all the vegetables. Number 5, we want to switch to raw dairy or consider just having no dairy at all. Milk intolerance is linked to a low vitamin D. So for a long time, I thought that I could handle milk just fine because I had no gut issues, but I had all of this cystic acne. I had thirst, I had bad body odor, and I cut out the pasteurized dairy. It was my favorite food. It was a horrible realization that pasteurized dairy was causing my acne. It was causing all these side effects in my body. And I didn't understand why something that was a whole food could cause this problem in my body. So after cutting out dairy for a few years, I realized that it was the pasteurization that was causing these problems. So in this 2020 study, unpasteurized milk is associated with increased lactobacillus abundance in the human gut microbiome. So they're finding out that raw milk is full of these probiotics. So they're finding out that raw milk contains all these good living bacteria that are supposed to colonize the intestinal system. And when you think about the setup between the mother and the child, the mother is trying to colonize the entire gut system of the baby to have a healthy gut. And when you boil the milk, you're killing all the good bacteria. And now you've left it open to be fed upon by bad gut bacteria. So we're finding out that milk is putting the good bacteria in the gut that produces the lactase enzyme that allows for superior digestion. So there's a million anecdotes like this all over X and Reddit that people who thought they were lactose intolerant or were told they were lactose intolerant were really just pasteurization intolerant. They can handle raw milk, no problem. And we're starting to see all sorts of these different studies pop up. Raw milk in childhood and adulthood in farm and non-farm populations can be one of the most effective protective factors when talking about allergies and asthma, which is a big issue these days. In this study, they were talking about how one of the enzymes, alkaline phosphatase, could be an anti-inflammatory enzyme. This enzyme detoxifies inflammatory components, making them unable to trigger inflammatory responses. So the alkaline phosphatase, we actually use a test to know when milk is fully pasteurized, is when you can't detect this enzyme anymore. So we're purposefully destroying this enzyme, which researchers are now starting to figure out is anti-inflammatory. A lot of people would say like raw milk is dangerous, and it was dangerous in prior times before refrigeration and before we weren't feeding the animals properly. We were keeping them in the cities because we didn't have good transportation and good refrigeration, and the animals were getting sick, and we were milking their pus-filled teats. Of course, that's going to be a problem. But today's raw milk seems very safe as far as data goes, and the alternatives aren't free of risk either. A third person dies from listeriosis in Ontario linked to plant-based milk. There's also been outbreaks in milk that has been pasteurized with issues in the cleaning equipment. There's people dying all the time from potatoes and lettuce and peanuts, and no one's calling for the removal of those foods. We understand that outbreaks happen here and there. And then when you look at raw milk, which is legal in some states and many European countries, there hasn't been close to anywhere near the same level of outbreaks or deaths compared to these other foods. So it's very strange why they're demonizing just this one type of food. Here's a paper from 2020. Raw milk producers in North America and Europe have demonstrated that raw milk intended for direct consumption can be produced safe and hygienic. So what that means is that milk that's produced for pasteurization, the cows are kept in worse situations. Their health is not as good. Their immune system's already compromised, and they know it's going to be pasteurized. So we can't drink that milk raw. But if you're going to drink milk raw, they'll make sure the animals are kept outdoors, that they're not taking any kind of antibiotics, and that they have a healthy immune system themselves. They test the milk to make sure the bacteria levels aren't getting too high, and they retire them before the levels become problematic. And so raw milk these days is completely different than the raw milk of 100 years ago. But this is all just information. You're a grown adult, you can make your own decisions. But I would just say that I've coached a lot of people, and a lot of people do well with removing pasteurized dairy. Number 6, we don't want any white flour because they're adding iron to it in the United States and Canada. Now, iron deficiency is a global nutritional deficiency. It's involved in the pathogenesis of certain types of heart disease. And so the researchers had this idea, let's just add a bunch of powdered iron to the white flour that everybody loves, and then that will fix the problem, right? But they're finding out that our body is depositing iron everywhere that it can to get it out of the blood. Iron deposits following a heart attack led to the formulation of fatty tissue in the heart, which causes chronic heart failure. There's too much iron in our body, and it's causing heart disease. An association between vitamin D deficiency and hemoglobin concentration has been reported. So what that means is that when you don't have enough vitamin D, your body is not going to make enough healthy blood. And this is because of a new discovery called anemia of inflammation, which is where when your body is inflamed, it starts to store the iron anywhere it can. It stores it in the liver, it stores it in the spleen, it stores it in the bone. It's even been storing it in joints, stores it in the skin with liver spots. It's just trying to get the iron out of play because of inflammation. So we need the iron to make the healthy red blood, but our body's been hiding it. Why has it been hiding it? Studies in children have shown that excess iron causes inflammation and the growth of pathogenic bacteria. Our iron status, it depends on the state of our immune health and our gut health. Since iron is an essential factor for H. pylori, it also competes with the host for iron absorption. That's us. H. pylori possesses some proteins of the outer membrane that play a role in bacterial iron absorption and so on. So we can't just raise the iron and produce enough blood and we're going to be okay. There's all this bacteria in our body. We have a compromised immune system, and the bacteria is trying to feed off of it. So our body needs to play a game of how can it keep the infection down while also raising our irons high enough that it can produce enough blood so that our blood can flow better and allow us to bring our testosterone levels up. So we want to avoid anything that's been iron fortified. This powderized iron is just going to set off inflammation. It's going to make the blood thick and sludgy. It's going to lead to hypogonadism. And so we want to avoid anything with white flour, anything with iron added to it, such as children's cereal. Now, if you're like me and you love white flour, you can find it without iron added. By law in Canada and America, they have to add the iron unless it's organic. Now, some of the organic versions will still enrich or fortify it with iron. You have to take a look at the labels and make sure that there's no iron added to it. And if your experience is anything like mine, you'll find out that the digestion is so much better with the non-fortified iron-free white flour. You can make your own bread, make your own pancakes and everything else, and just avoid anything that's made with white flour when you've left the house. Number 7, we want to avoid toxic burdens on our immune system. So as we talked about, our immune system controls the amount of blood that we can produce, and that's going to control the blood flow that goes to every organ in your body, including your testicles. So the effects of statins on testosterone in men, quote, statins may partially operate by lowering testosterone. So we want to be wary of any sort of medicine, but this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions. I'm just putting this information out there. But a lot of people are on pharmaceuticals that haven't been fully studied on how they impact testosterone. Here's a paper here. These results support that excess fluoride exposure decreased serum testosterone levels of male farmers. Decrease in levels of testosterone and activities of various antioxidant enzymes resulted in greater oxidative stress, was also seen with fluoride exposure. So we want to avoid as much fluoride as we can. They're adding it to the drinking water. People are brushing their teeth with it. It's added to anything that's produced with public tap water, such as beer and soup and juice from concentrate, all sorts of things. And they're finding out that using a water treatment device in the house can lead to modest reductions of heart problems, cancer problems, Alzheimer's, all sorts of things. So the best option, in my opinion, is spring water. That's what our family does. But distilled or reverse osmosis can also remove a lot of these awful things like aluminum, chlorine, fluoride, lead. So the main thing is just to be doing something, whether that's spring water or distilled or reverse osmosis. Another thing is to pay attention to microplastic exposure. Quote, sperm quality and testosterone levels in mice decreased by increasing their exposure to microplastics. Now, this one's a little harder to understand. I think they're still trying to figure out the main source of this, but it seems like inhalation is one of the worst exposures for microplastics. So what that would mean is like vinyl flooring in your house, it would make a dust, or synthetic polyester carpets or polyester sheets in your bed. Those will slowly break down into a dust, and then we're breathing in those microplastics. So what I'm trying to do is opting for natural materials if possible. So cotton sheets and cotton pillowcases, cotton clothing, and maybe you want to filter your indoor air or making sure there's plenty of fresh outdoor air coming in, those kinds of things. So how do you know if your efforts are working when you're trying to boost your testosterone? So let's talk about the symptoms of low testosterone. Stubborn fat at the belly, that's a symptom of testosterone. So if you've got a big belly, you probably already know that you have low testosterone. And we want to see that belly slowly melt away without dieting. We want to see it go away naturally as we work on these things. Low musculature has been linked to low testosterone, low sexual desire, and sexual health issues such as erectile dysfunction, or you're not getting your morning erection and those sorts of things. If you have anemia or fatigue, you're just feeling tired all the time, that's a link of low testosterone. So if you see that you're starting to feel more energetic, you start feeling like you want to do things again, that's a good sign. If you're feeling sad, depressed, or apathetic, and then you start to feel happier and you start to feel like things aren't so bad anymore and you want to go out and you're feeling more social, that's a good sign. Reduced beard and body hair growth. And here's another list of symptoms. You can pause it if you want and take a look at these. You want to see the other side of this. So for example, with lack of motivation, if you're starting to feel motivated and you start feeling like you want to do things again and you're like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to pick up this hobby, or I want to, all those kinds of things, that's a good sign that your body is rebuilding. Here's another list that you can go through. So that's the body shape of a low testosterone man. So you want to see the gut tighten up. You want to see the muscles come in. and you want to feel full of life. You want to see good color in the skin, showing good blood flow. And one other thing you can pay attention to is if your voice starts to become deeper. So that was one thing I noticed, was I used to have a more nasally voice than I do today. And it's just come down a little bit as I've been working on improving sunshine and improving my diet and trying to work on anything that's pro-testosterone. But also know that chronic inflammation is linked to low testosterone. So there are symptoms of chronic inflammation that are known, such as arthritis and joint diseases. So if you notice that certain foods are causing you joint pain, don't eat those foods. Allergies such as asthma and hay fever. So if you notice that certain foods are fighting against those, such as raw milk or honey, those kinds of things are going to be pro-testosterone. Chronic fatigue and insomnia, depression. So all these, like as we just talked about, a lot of these symptoms are similar to, they're directly linked to the low testosterone symptoms. Gastrointestinal complications such as acid reflux and constipation. So anything that's causing that throat clearing, that's a dead giveaway. You don't want to be eating those foods. Frequent infections. So just anything that's making you feel down, that's making you feel bloated, just avoid those foods for now. So pay attention to anything that causes throat clearing, acid reflux, or bloating, and avoid those foods. So that was a lot of information. So here's a recap. Number one, we want to spend as much time as we can outside in the sunshine, outside in the fresh air. We want to take off those sunglasses, take off those eyeglasses, let those ultraviolet rays reach the eyes, which will bring it into the body and help our entire immune system and gut and everything work better. Number two, we want to stop eating foods that you can't digest today. That doesn't mean that you avoid those foods forever, but it means that for whatever reason, your immune system just can't take it right now. And so we want to perhaps restrict those foods that are causing you issues and work on rebuilding the immune system so that you can reintroduce those later. So if it's causing you to clear your throat or causing you acid reflux, you may want to minimize that or avoid it. We want to eat a diet that's high in vitamin A and vitamin D. We want to eat pastured meat from grass-fed animals. We want to eat their meat and their fat, eat their organs if you can. Liver can still be a little high in iron and copper for some people's immune system, so you may want to try sweetbreads. Wild fish is a great option. Fish roe is a great option as well. Number four, we want to eat lots of healthy animals. Animals that are raised outside, animals that have proper levels of vitamin D. When they have good levels of vitamin D, we will get those good levels of vitamin D. We want to try switching to raw dairy. And if that sounds crazy, maybe just cut out dairy. Raw dairy has anti-inflammatory enzymes like alkaline phosphatase. It also has lactase-producing bacteria, which improves digestion. It has all the probiotics that people are all crazy about these days. So raw dairy is a completely different food compared to pasteurized dairy, in my experience. So you may want to experiment with that. I would avoid all white flour that is iron fortified. That means no pizza, no cookies, no bread, no muffins, no croissants. Anything made in Canada or America with white flour, I would just avoid it. Avoid all children's cereal that has iron fortification. You can look into children's cereal that made with corn, such as Enviro Kids. If you want to be able to make pancakes or make bread at home, look into organic white flour that doesn't have the iron added. If you decide to try that, I think you'll find it's much easier on the gut. So remember, our body is lowering iron on purpose to protect us against pathogenic bacteria. So we need to fix the immune system to get that iron levels back up where they should be. Number 7, we want to avoid anything that's a toxic burden on the body. That includes things like fluoride, chlorine, heavy metals like lead, pesticides, mold in the house. Make sure that your house is clean. Electromagnetic frequencies. You don't want to be living under a power line that's causing a burden on the body. You want to be wary of any new injections. All these things are hard on the immune system. It's already overworked. It's already overburdened. So anything that we can do to just make it a little bit easier for our body is going to give our immune system more space to fight back and to win. So if you want to boost your testosterone naturally, the fight is against chronic inflammation. So feel free to email me anytime at team@outliveforever.com. And pay attention to anything new that is going to fight against inflammation. So if you see something that's fighting against heart disease or cancer or diabetes or those kinds of things in a natural way, that might help to boost your testosterone as well. Now, there's only so much I can cover in a YouTube video. I don't want to get shadow banned or just straight up banned too early in my YouTube career. So I'd like to invite you to join the Outlive newsletter. I send a weekly email and I can talk about much more controversial topics. And so I hope to see you over there. And thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a good one.